Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, MD Advantage Insurance Company, New Jersey Sharing Network, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, TD Bank, Summit City MD, a provider of primary, specialty, and urgent care, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, and by the Adler Aphasia Center, enriching the lives of people with aphasia, their families, and communities. Promotional support provided by Jaffe Communications, supporting our state's innovators and changemakers with public relations, creative services, and more. And by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you remotely. And for those of you who have seen us do this, we're trying to keep tweaking the technology, get better every day. By the way, someone said living and managing in the age of COVID-19 is like flying a plane while you're building it, or the other way around. In that case, a really innovative guy, I know that's a corny transition, but he's innovating every day. He's Dr. Brian Strom, Chancellor of Rutgers Biomedical and Health Sciences and Executive Vice President of Health Affairs at Rutgers University. Good to see you, Dr. Strom.
Pleasure to see you as always.
Let's talk innovation. A couple things at Rutgers. Number one, there is a take-home saliva test that's been approved. What is it and why does it matter so much?
We think, obviously we're biased, but we think it is an enormous, important contribution. And it's really two parts, at least. One is three parts. The traditional way you do tests, they're done one at a time. You hear people talking about test kits and not enough test kits. The technology that has been developed by Andy Brooks and Jay Tishfield at Rutgers, New Brunswick, can do 10,000 tests a day. And we are a day, and we are, with support from the state, elevating that to 50,000 tests a day. So an enormous improvement from only a few weeks ago, the state was only doing 7,000 tests per day across the entire state. We can now do, within a week or two, we'll be able to do 50,000 tests a day just in this one lab. Second major advance is the normal way you do COVID testing is very invasive and uncomfortable, having to take what amounts to a Q-tip, put it all the way in your nose very deep, all the way in your mouth very deep. For uncomfortable sampling, the person who does the sampling has to be in full protective gear in the process. It takes a while to do it. This is done by spitting in a cup. And we just did this yesterday. We just tested it on 800 of our students who are going back into the wards. In 7.5 hours, we did 800 students. So it was less than a minute a student to be able to get these tests. The third major advance is they now have the ability to do it as a home kit. So you can mail it. It can be shipped to your home. You spit in a cup and ship it back. And so in many ways, this is an enormous opportunity and advance to be able to increase COVID testing, which is key to economically opening up for the state.
You know, as a Rutgers alum, I remember what life was like in New Brunswick back in the day, and 50,000 plus students overall, Doctor?
We're now about 70,000, yeah.
That's a long ago. Yeah, and by the way, every campus, Rutgers, Newark, New Brunswick, Camden, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, 70,000. Okay, play this out. We're doing this on the 16th of June, be seen later. How challenging is it to have 70,000 students, some of whom will be in classrooms, lecture halls, et cetera. Some will be online, dorms, protective, social distancing, masks. You talk to me. Can we predict what it looks like in the fall of 2020 into the winter?
So we can certainly predict whether the predictions are correct, or of course it'll be a different story. But we have been undergoing an enormous process now over a number of months of planning for what we'll do this summer and what we'll do in the fall. It will differ by campus. It'll differ by school. It'll differ in different situations. So, for example, the football team has now returned to campus. They were given these mail order test kits before they came. In fact, 2 people were positive, so they were told not to come. And the rest will stay completely isolated, living in an intact facility, just with themselves and their coaches, and will be tested, I don't remember, once or twice a week in addition to maintain. So for that very controlled environment, they have a lot of physical contact, they play with each other, they'll be playing with other people. When they go to play games, there'll be no audience.
No fans.
No fans. On TV, filmed, but no fans in the stadium. And so it's that's a very different situation. And key to the theme here is targeted. Very different situation than, for example, our research. We basically stopped all of our laboratory research because of the need for social distancing. We're now restarting it again. We're restarting it slowly, gradually between now and September. The people who wanted to come back to work first were asked to take saliva tests before they came back. And they'll come back, we're guessing maybe at 50% capacity in June, maybe 75% capacity during the summer, and 100% over September, wearing masks, weekly tests, staying 6 feet away, remote social distancing. One of my colleagues prefers to call it physical distancing, an actual better term, because that's really the issue. You don't have to be socially isolated. You need to be physically apart from each other. And so the researchers are being brought back that way. The classrooms, to the degree there are big lecture rooms, they'll be done remotely. To the degree the classes need to be on site, like some of our clinical classes need to be on site.
Where do masks fit in? Dr. Strom, where do masks fit in?
Everybody on site wears masks. Anybody physically present wears a mask. And
inside, outside, what?
Everywhere. If you're going to be on campus, you wear a mask. It's more important inside. When people go into buildings, we'll track who's in the building. So if somebody gets sick, we know who is there, who is with them, so we can identifying the people with them. So it's going to dramatically change the character of the university. Dorms will not be fully occupied. They will be used, as they are now, for foreign students, for out-of-state students, for students who don't have other homes to be able to go to. But people who can commute will be asked to keep commuting in order to, again, remote distancing, social distancing, keeping people apart. It will be a different kind of experience, but yet nicely, we shifted suddenly to teaching remotely, as you know, obviously in the spring, and the feedback from the students, the ratings of those classes were actually even higher than the ratings of the classes before. So it's worked.
It's interesting. The one thing that you and I talked about recently on a podcast that we did for our colleagues at MD Advantage, we were talking about a whole range of issues. And I did ask you about the vaccine issue. And I'm going to ask you again in this forum. The term vaccine is a tricky term because for many it means a cure-all. What does it mean to you?
Vaccine is not a cure-all. There's really only 3 ways this pandemic can end. 2 of them are herd immunity. The third I'll talk about in a minute. One way of getting herd immunity is if 50 to 70% of the population gets the disease. Given we're talking about a disease that so far has been killing 6% of the people who've been getting it in New Jersey, that's probably a high estimate because we don't know everybody who got sick, but been killing a lot of people. Even people who don't get killed get very sick. You don't want to go that way if you don't have to. Second way you develop herd immunity is with a vaccine. You take an injection of something, and we can talk about that something, and that if that gives people immunity and enough immunity, then instead of them getting the disease, they get the immunity from the vaccine. That clearly is the best way to proceed here, if we can. Third way is if we can't get to herd immunity, either by a vaccine or by infection or because antibodies don't work, then ultimately the hope is over years the pandemic will burn out because over time viruses tend to get less serious.
So we're going to be right back right after this. I'm Steve Adubato. Thanks for watching.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back, folks. We are now joined by Nadine Leslie, who's Chief Executive Officer of SUEZ North America. Nadine, great to have you. Last time you were with us in the studio, now you're with us remotely. Tell us what the most significant challenges facing SUEZ have been since, let's just say, mid-March with COVID-19.
Good morning, Steve, and thank you for having me.
It's great having you.
So great to see you, although virtually today. So our challenges have been, I will say, very similar to many of the other industries. So our priority was to ensure that we continue to provide essential services to the community that we serve. So water was always viewed as essential, but in light of this crisis, I think that everyone, is paying more attention to it, because as you know, washing hands is essential to combat the virus. So, we went really in full gear, engage, understand what we needed to do to modify our protocols, and really continue to provide the service 24/7. So I would say that for us, what was very critical to ensure that our customers didn't have any interruption in services, that our employees were well. So the health of our employees was really key for us. So we had to quickly adjust and put new protocols in place. So, and ensuring also that these new personal protective equipments were available for employees. So that was, I think, across the board, one of our main concern and challenge that we have. The good thing is that we have this personal protective equipment in stock because it's part of our job. But our concern was, are we going to have enough should the crisis last for a number of months? So I'm very pleased to say that we are able to continue to function, to provide these PPE, personal protective equipment, to our teams, and did not have any time where we had to stop.
We're taping on the 16th of June. This will be seen later. I remember when you were in the studio, Nadine, we talked about how we sometimes take water for granted, right? Could you give a very brief, if you could, description of how you protect, how SUEZ protects? By the way, SUEZ, one of the underwriters of our program, I want to clarify that. How do you protect the water treated? What's the right word to use here?
Well, the good thing is when the water is treated, the water is safe and clean.
Not affected by COVID at all?
Not at all. And I'm sure that you have seen the CDC and many other experts speak about it at the very beginning of the crisis.
That's right.
The water that is in your tap when you turn it on is safe and clean, free of viruses.
So what's interesting moving forward is that people often talk about what the new normal is, right? I don't even know if the word normal should be put in there, Nadine. If we're into the fall, going into the winter, what do you see the biggest challenge facing SUEZ being at that point? Again, here's the problem with the question. We don't know what the virus is going to do. We don't know about the second wave. But how do you prepare for the potential that there is a second wave at SUEZ?
With what we have learned the last 3 months, we were really ready to manage crisis. But a crisis like this one, there's no playbook for it.
There's no playbook.
Continuously adjust. But with what we have learned so far, I think we are way more better off and well prepared should we have a second wave. So we are all hoping that we will be behaving responsibly and follow the guidance, having a social distancing, wearing masks to prevent that second wave. But should it happen, we will be better prepared and we will be able to also react differently.
How so? How so? What do you mean react differently?
So, for instance, we had to modify our way of working. Essential employees, so the one that at the treatment plants and the distribution systems, we had to modify the way that the work is organized, so scattered schedule to ensure social distancing, re-engineer the activities so they can really be safe while performing them. For the non-essential staff, working remotely, so we were ready, which was great, and it has been working very efficiently. So should we need to re-engage the team and go back, to this modified way of working, then that would be done without hesitation. It took us a few days to do so. Some of the activities in the field we had to stop because we need to really understand the exposure of our employees and re-engineer around it. So now everything is ready. The playbook has been written, and although we are continuously adjusting it, but we are definitely better positioned to respond to another wave should it happen.
Well said. Nadine, every time you join us or representatives from SUEZ, we learn more about water again, that we often take for granted. And we wish you and your team all the best. And we thank you for joining us here. Next time, we're hoping and praying that when you join us, it can be in our studio over at NJTV in Newark, New Jersey. So Nadine Leslie, who is Chief Executive Officer, SUEZ North America, I want to thank you so much for joining us. All the best.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back, folks. We're joined once again by Tom Bergeron, who's editor and chief content officer at ROI-NJ. Good to see you, Tom.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Real quick, let everyone know, describe ROI and then what the website is so we can put it up there.
ROI-NJ.com. Listen, we're a multimedia platform, both a website and a print edition, although right now we're doing a digital version of the print edition until COVID passes. We like to think of ourselves as covering business and politics in the state, and especially how they intersect.
Yep. And by the way, we have a content sharing partnership with ROI. Let me just disclose that, but let me deal with this. We just actually had a state senator on. We're State Senator Declan O'Scanlan. We're taping on the 16th of June. We'll be seeing later. We never try to be timely. If you want to be timely, watch NJTV News, watch Metro Focus on public television. However, we actually had O'Scanlan on, Senator O'Scanlan, who kept saying that Governor Murphy, we don't know what statistics he's looking at, what metrics he's looking at, but he's taking way too long to do what he needs to do. By the time this airs, things may have changed. Do you think it's a legitimate criticism of Governor Murphy that no one knows what statistics he's looking at?
I would say that's a very legitimate concern of the governor. I don't think anyone is necessarily against what he's doing, but they want to know, how it's being made. And, a couple of times he keeps stressing data determines dates, but he will never give you the data. He'll just say vague things like we look at a lot of things. And if he just came up and was a little bit more specific, and I can understand from his part, he doesn't want to be held to things. I think he's a lot of the concern.
Yeah, but with things changing so quickly, Tom, I'm not here to be an apologist for the governor, but isn't it fair to say that it's really virtually impossible to say certain things will happen because there are so many variables and moving parts?
I agree with you entirely, but the counter and the problem is that he does give dates. And since the 16th, we just had the opening of outdoor dining on the 15th. He gave that date 10 days before and said, data determines dates, it's going to be the 15th. And everyone said, hey, why don't we do it on the 12th? Give him the Friday, give him the weekend. And he said, well, no, data determines the dates. Nobody believes that specific data said it specifically could open on the 15th and not the 12th. So, that's where he loses people a little bit. I don't think people are necessarily against what he's doing and the slow rollout. And look, this is a really, really difficult situation. As someone said to me, shutting down is really easy, opening up is really hard. And, that's where we're at.
Let's talk about another piece of this. The racial injustice, the institutional racism, the social issues going on right now post George Floyd and other horrific incidents we see on camera involving men and women of color involving police. The governor was at a rally protesting with his mask on. To disclose, I was as well here in Montclair. Our son was involved with some students at Montclair High School. There were about 4 or 5, maybe 6,000 people there. I believe everyone had a mask. but the governor was there as well. It was way more at the one in Montclair and the one the governor was at, the one in Newark, all over the place. It's not the number that is supposed to be together. The governor said it was different in this case because the issue was so important. Does that fly with everyone?
It doesn't. He's correct in saying that this is a different type of issue and a different type of time and a different type of moment. And if you want to say that we're going to relax the rules on that, that's fine, but you can't go back and not relax the rules on other things. The governor last week had dinner with the president in Bedminster. Okay, who's going to turn down a chance to have dinner with the president? It helped with the Portal Bridge, but at the same time, he's saying no in the indoor dining, but he's having indoor dining. So again, like everything else, if you're for him, you're going to say yay. If you're against him, you're going to say boo. It's a tough line that he's trying to walk. He generally has done it very well. There's going to be some slip-ups, and when there are, people are going to jump on him fairly or unfairly.
You know, ROI does talk about, write about, and examine and analyze politics and business. But what really strikes me on the political end of this, and I actually thought, Tom, I'm naive enough to think that somehow with COVID-19, there wouldn't be such a Democratic, Republican, conservative, liberal, blue and red divide. But I was literally wearing a mask the other day, and a friend of mine who is frankly a pretty significant Trump supporter said, wow, a mask. It shows, not that he knows my party affiliation because it's no one's business, it shows what a Democrat you are. And I thought, really, the mask means you're a Democrat? Not wearing the mask means you're Republican? Oh, you're in the media, so you would wear a mask. Where did the whole thing, there's a question here, trust me, the whole thing about masks, not a mask, being associated with people's perception of political, cultural, social ideology?
It's a crazy situation where everything now is left or right, for or against, pro and con, the whole cancel culture that's coming out. And it's a danger, and we all know that. But everybody seems to want to jump one way or another, take one aspect, one decision, one statement, and say this defines somebody. It's silliness, it's craziness, as everybody's grandmother has said at one point or another. You know, there's no cure for stupid. People want to do stupid things and think stupid things, they're going to do it. And that's just where we're in right now. And all of this, of course, is heightened because we've all been trapped and tied up and held up in all of our situations. And it's just making people want to lash out. And that's unfortunate.
Got about a minute left. Business people you talk to every day, they're struggling. They're trying to make budget, hold on to their people, keep their business alive. They have a legitimate beef by saying just open up everything in New Jersey, given the fact that we see what's going on around the nation, some other places that have not. That have opened up and the cases are going up. Help us on that.
So here are the issues. You can say that you can let all businesses open up because nobody has more to lose than the business themselves, right? If you and I own a donut shop and we open the doors and there's no safety precautions and there's no social distancing or any of the rules, people are going to walk in, walk out. They're never going to come in again, and they're going to tell all their friends not to go there. So the person that loses the most would be the business owner. And that's going to be easy enough to say, just let everybody open up. The governor is going to say, again, no cure for stupid. We have to protect people from themselves. If we open up too much, we'll do it. It's a tough situation. Why can a big box store be open and a small, tiny boutique store not be? There's really not a good reason for it. It's tough to have a good explanation. But the business owners are hurting, and we haven't even gotten the idea of the cost of reopening is going to be so tremendous. The fear of the lawsuits when they open is going to be so tremendous. And those for the retail shops, those are the ones that are really going to struggle. They don't know what to do. The restaurants, he opens up outdoor dining. Okay, you got to invest tons of money to be able to have outdoor dining, and you're not going to make it back. So these are tough times.
30 seconds. The nursing home situation, investigations. Do you believe there are going to be legislative hearings? Senator O'Scanlan was calling for subpoena power, et cetera. That's a huge issue.
Huge issue. There are going to be hearings. I fear that, like with everything else, everyone is going to prejudge, and you're either pro-Murphy or against Murphy, pro-opening or against opening.
How about pro-facts, Tom Bergeron?
Well, that would be nice. Listen, that's what we're trying to do. So that would be great. But the unfortunate nature of, look, were there some mistakes? Undoubtedly. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knows now. 6 months from now, we're going to look back on what we're doing today and say, gee, we should have done A or B. Everybody's blind here, but there certainly will be hearings. There certainly will be things to come out.
Once again, we appreciate Tom Bergeron, who is the editor and chief content officer at ROI-NJ. Tom, all the best to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Steve Adubato. We'll catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, MD Advantage Insurance Company, New Jersey Sharing Network, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, TD Bank, Summit City MD, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, and by the Adler Aphasia Center. Promotional support provided by Jaffe Communications and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Hi, I'm Governor Tom Kean. A dear friend of mine had aphasia, which is a language disorder that occurs from a brain injury or a stroke. It robs a person's ability to communicate, but it doesn't affect their intellect. Programs and services offered at the Adler Aphasia Center help to improve my friend's communication skills, as well as her self-confidence and quality of life. Most importantly, she was among people who understood her. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with aphasia, there is hope.